Yeah, we'll go number one, then you'll go your number one. All right. So my number one story are the big announcer movement, unprecedented in probably if you think about the money involved, the names involved in the history of sports media. It's almost too long to go through it all, but the big one to me, Joe Buck goes from Fox to ESPN for Monday Night Football. That one, if you said that a year and a half ago, a year ago, I don't think we'd say that was something that was on the horizon. He had 1 year left on his deal. Troy Aikman first went to ESPN, and then that set up the big deal. Tom Brady, $375 million contract with Fox. If he ever does it, some people don't think he will, but still, he's got $37.5 million per year if he ever does retire from playing. And then upcoming now, Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson will be doing the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, maybe the greatest of all time, Al Michaels is on Amazon. Mike Tirico is on NBC and with Chris Collinsworth. And then just in their sixth year, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are sitting there at CBS, and Romo kind of started it all, as you heard in the opening.
Bargain basement. You have Kevin Burkhardt and you have Greg Olson at Fox, and Fox on Thanksgiving with the Cowboys game set a record, NFL regular season record in viewership. And I heard from a lot of people saying, see, these announcer salaries aren't worth it, that they're being overpaid. And I believe that they are worth it. And I believe that looking at it in terms of current TV ratings is not the right way of doing it. You got to look at this almost as a marketing expense, and even a marketing expense to an audience of 5, which includes Roger Goodell, Ryan Rolap, who listens to this podcast, Hans Schroeder, and people over at the NFL in terms of getting better schedules for them. And just, ESPN went from having kind of the cable package and a production that didn't rise up to what the broadcast networks were doing, to now it's absolutely legitimately compared to NBC and Fox and CBS, in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple of things there. Number one, bargain basement. Greg Olson's making around $10 million this year. So, I don't know what your basement looks like. That doesn't sound like a bargain basement.
What? Come on. What do they pay you for this podcast, Andrew?
Almost 10 million per podcast. That's one. I think Joe Buck is my 2022 was number one in my power rankings that come out in my newsletter every Monday. And this Monday has had my power rankings. The reason he went from almost doubling his salary, went from around 9 million to 15 million. He cut his work basically in half. No more baseball, just does Monday Night Football, and then a little side work maybe with ESPN Plus. He did a Manning cast, but mostly just NFL. And this is the kicker to me. I think he'll be more popular because of this. And what they've delivered, Buck and Aikman for ESPN with flex scheduling, which we'll talk about more next week when we look ahead, coming, I do think it makes sense. A lot of money. Now everyone at ESPN wants the big bucks. They're not going to get it. Chris Fowler, I think wants to be in that neighborhood, and I think he's going to be told you can get a little raise, but isn't going to get the same money as, even near Buck or Aikman. And so if he wants to stay, he's going to have to make a decision there. But ultimately, this was an amazing year in terms of movement. And then the big one at the end, Tom Brady, which, I've spent months trying to figure out what Fox was doing. And they tried to keep that very quiet, and then they announced it. And then we had the story about $375 million for 10 years. When I was told, they just kept higher and higher, and Brady decided to do it. We shall see, how that turns out. It's a very interesting story going forward.
I just have one quick question for you, though. So these are all NFL announcers, and the NFL, of course, is the most popular programming on television, irregardless of sports. Hold
on.
Could I just say irregardless?
Hold on.
Chris Mason, can you edit that out, please?
What's our friend who said irregardless is not a word? That was that seemed like a plant, but John just did that off the cuff. That is staying in the pod. You guys are listening.
By the way, did you notice my facial expression? I knew the second I said it, I was like, oh gosh, I can't get that to come back.
Oh my God. Who's down? Irregardless, it's John Ourand. All right,
so
I
in
can't
the
believe it.
NBA.
Irregardless, this was an unforced era.
You know what? Let's just go to the next topic.
Okay, next topic. No question. All right, what's your number one story of the year?